Clint, how's it going, man?
Hey, man, what's up? How are you?
Very good. Very excited to have you on the show. I know you probably had a crazy last few weeks, very exciting with the draft. Still far away, a lot to get through first with your high school season, so wish you the best. Now, I want to get right into this. You're playing for Loganville High School right now in the great state of Georgia. You know, you're setting records, making scouts and executives for the Houston Astros and plenty of other teams think about their first-round selection or for the Astros' first overall selection. But before we get into detail with baseball, I want to know, what was it like growing up, for you playing baseball? How did you get into it, and what were your experiences before you got into high school?
I actually started playing baseball at the age of 3, and it's kind of funny how I got started. My dad was off at work, and my mom would be at home raising me, and she used to throw plastic baseballs to me in the front yard. I would swing a yellow Playmate bat that was actually bigger than me. So I got started at a really young age, and I wasn't old enough to play in a regular league, so I played in the church league with a bunch of kids that are about my age at the age of 4, and then from that point on, it's been baseball ever since.
Wow, that's great. I mean, the same thing with me with the wiffle balls and everything else. But that's great to hear. Starting off early is usually how it goes with top players, and as I mentioned earlier, you are the top high school player in the country right now. There's some debate about that, and we'll talk about a few others that you've probably played with as well later. But do you ever look back and realize, looking at this last season, how historic of a year you put up for your team, setting records, or do you just kind of keep grinding away and stay focused on the future?
Yeah, I'm actually trying to stay focused on the future right now because I'm not trying to be complacent with anything I've done right now because overall it is a team. It's not about me. So
yeah,
I wouldn't be in the situation I'm in right now if I didn't have great coaches, a good family, and obviously a good community that supports me very well.
Yeah, absolutely. Great community, great state you live in. I can tell you really do like Georgia, and we'll get to the college a little later, some news on that. But getting into baseball here, you had a great season last year, and, not just yourself but your team. You guys went all the way to your state title. It was a magnificent year for you. So coming off of a year where you hit, over 20 home runs, bat over 400, what were your 2 years like before the junior year, though? What were your feelings going into the freshman year? Were you starting right away? And what were some of those adjustments that you have made over the years?
I actually got the opportunity as an 8th grader to play on the 9th grade baseball team at Loganville. So Coach Seegers actually gave me the opportunity to get ready for what I'd be facing whenever I got on varsity, playing against the older kids.
Absolutely.
And I was 15 years old on varsity, and I started off the year injured with my back. I actually hurt that in the weight room. I pinched a nerve, and it would bother me whenever I swing. So I only ended up getting 40 at-bats my freshman year, but I had a pretty good year. I think I batted .430 with 5 home runs and 15 RBIs. And then I went into my sophomore year with higher expectations. I was trying to stay healthy. And I ended up tying, he's actually in the major leagues right now. His name's Brandon Moss. Plays first base for the Oakland Athletics. I ended up tying his home run record for a single season with 17 home runs as a 10th grader. So from that point on, I was trying to break every record that he had and lead our team to a state championship.
Yeah, and that's actually what happened last year. I mean, it was kind of a storybook year for you and for you personally. And the team, of course, Brandon Moss, he's a pretty good player right now for the Oakland A's, coming off of a magical year for their team as well. But, getting back to last year, again, setting records, you guys won state. I mean, that's a big deal. What was it like for you as a team? How rewarding was it? And was last year kind of a storybook year for you, or do you expect bigger and better things this upcoming season?
It's been a grind. I mean, that's kind of the word that I've heard all summer, sitting through the meetings, going through the playoffs, everything. And I think we got preseason ranked number 1 again this year in Georgia, and that's 5 of the last 6 years for us. And the 1 year we weren't number 1, we were number 2. But we've been right at it in the state championship every year. We got knocked out in the Final Four, the Sweet 16, the Elite 8. So it was kind of fun getting down to the state championship and actually bringing back our coach another state championship because he earns it, man. He gets us there every year he prepares us. So it was an awesome feeling being able to bring him back another state championship.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys got it. One of the top teams in the state year in and year out have some competition there. Georgia is a very good state for baseball. We see it, every year with the draft. Top players, top high school players usually that get drafted and major league teams are able to snag from colleges. But, it's just year in and year out. I don't know how they do it. I see a lot of talent from California. Obviously, it's a huge state. But Georgia is always up there with them. So very good to represent for your state as well. Now, talking about this last summer, you win the state title, but you had an extremely busy summer. I'm not sure if you really had much of a summer when it comes to just straight-up baseball. You played in the 2012 high school All-American team. You went to the Under Armour team. You played, a perfect game, which I have actually somewhat of a question about that because I've interviewed a few players already from that, and they always have some great experiences there. But talking about the All-American team, what was it like for you to see some of your teammates get drafted from that game, in last year's draft, some even in the first round? And did you learn anything specific playing with the best of the best for high school baseball?
Oh, yeah. See, I grew up with Matt Olson. He actually got drafted at Parkview, that's where I grew up. So he's about 20 minutes down the road. So he didn't actually play in the All-American game. He played in the Under Armour game. So,
okay.
It was fun watching somebody that I personally knew get drafted and get the opportunity to go out and play pro ball and then pursue their professional career. And, just sitting around asking another kid who got drafted off of our team this year and what it's like to play in the minor leagues and have Brandon Moss, who's had minor league experience and professional experience, it's awesome having those people. But, to know people that got drafted and see what it's like for them to be in the minor league and think forward to what it could be like for me in the future, that's a fun experience to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of things for you to look towards, but right now just try to stay focused on the game, which seems like you're doing completely fine. It would be extremely hard if I was in that position to do so because there's so much outside things going on, but they're mostly all positive. A lot of people are getting to know your name, probably some people recognizing you now, talking about you for the past year or so with this draft coming up. But staying on that last summer, you're part of a perfect game, which is one of my favorite events to follow, the top high school talent. You had teammates like J.P. Crawford, Kevin Franklin, who I've interviewed in the past. How many friendships over the years have you made with other players? And specifically, what is your relationship like with Austin Meadows, who is viewed almost as a rival from an outside perspective on the draft? But I know that you guys played on the same team or around the same team when you were younger. So, what is your relationship with Austin right now?
Me and Austin have a friendly competition. We've always played against each other. I've known Austin since I was 9 years old, so we've always been friends, but it's never been as much as a rivalry back then as it is now. But it's a good competition. It's not we get mad at each other whenever the other one succeed. I actually traveled all summer with Austin. He was my roommate at every event besides the All-American game whenever I roomed with Kevin Franklin. So, being in the situation with him and he's going through what I go through, it's kind of fun and relaxing to have somebody there that knows what you're going through day in and day out. And, Austin was there to push me in the summer. Every time I saw him succeed, it only made me want to succeed more. So he's there for me and I'm there for him, and I wish him the best. Yeah,
I think that's just a fantastic story, honestly. I will be writing some features on you and covering you hopefully throughout the year. And that's something to bring up because really with the draft, he seems to be someone who could go one in front, one behind. You don't know. The draft is so unpredictable. But people do talk about you guys a lot together as being the top of the top high school players. Now, the reason why I brought him up again is because he's somewhat comparable to you. He's a little bigger than you when it comes to size. He's like 6'3". I believe you're 6 or 6'1", which people do make a little bit bigger deal than I think is needed. They talk about your size being a little smaller, even though you're only an inch or two smaller, and you have the power about the same as anyone else in the field for the top high school players. So, in your mind, do you think people underestimate your power at all?
Oh, yeah. I really do think that people underestimate my power because, looking at me, I'm not a big kid. I'm not 6 foot. I think I'm more around 5'11". I think I just write 6 foot down just to ease the scouts' minds whenever they look at the paper. But I think in the state of Georgia, people don't really underestimate my power because I put up numbers the past 3 years. So I think locally people know what I can do, but whenever you get out nationally at these big events, people underestimate me. And, I like that because they come right at me at the plate and they give me their best. And, I can surprise them every now and then whenever I get a hold of a ball and hit it out.
Yeah, and you talked about that. I do think that people underestimate you as well. I'm glad you're honest because I know a lot of players are probably saying, kind of small talk their way out of it. But no, I think that you deserve more credit than you have gotten in terms of the draft. I do. Obviously, Austin he's taller and he's a lefty, and he's kind of a prime power hitter for the future. But looking at you, you're hitting consistently 20-plus home runs at least last year. Your forearms are monstrous. You have very fast hands. The tools are there to hit a bunch of home runs and to hit in the gap. So everything is looking up for you. And all around a 5-tool player, which is very exciting for scouts and people like. And more people will know your name and throughout the year. So all of that is positive. Now, getting to Austin Meadows and Georgia being such a great state for talent, guys like Byron Buxton last year in the draft. Now, you had, in addition to a summer showcase, you had to focus a little bit on potential colleges, just in case, I would say, the draft route doesn't work, or you would just rather maybe advance your game more the college route instead of the professional route right away. So, looking back at it, what was the recruitment process for you? I don't want to spoil exactly what college you chose in the question, but so could you tell the audience, what college you are committed to at least right now, and why did you choose that school, and what the process was like for you?
I'm actually signed with University of Georgia right now. I did that last month, and I committed to Georgia back in 11th grade. I had 2 kids on my high school team my freshman year. One was signed to Georgia and one was committed to Georgia, so I got a lot of exposure before I even had a driver's license, which was kind of overwhelming. Yeah. And I took a visit to University of Florida and Auburn, but none of them really seemed at home like Georgia was because, it was 45 minutes down the road. I had a sister who lived in Athens, and my family always grew up Georgia fans, so it was kind of the right pick. The coaches were great. The atmosphere was good, and I've always wanted to be a Bulldog, so I had to go with Georgia.
Yeah, and it seems to be a very good choice. If you end up playing there, a great team year in and year out. The coaches, again, as you mentioned, and playing as a Bulldog, very exciting there. So I've noticed you picked Georgia, but right now, have you been able to kind of settle down, or have you been constantly traveling, maybe working out for major league teams recently, or are you about to kind of get into that?
I'm a little settled down right now. Not many people know, but I had a procedure done on my arm about seven weeks ago, so it's kind of calmed me down a little bit. It was nothing serious. It was just I had tendonitis in my arm the whole summer, and I kind of played it off like no one knew about it because I had to go out there and act like my arm was fine. Yeah. But I've been rehabbing a lot, and tonight was actually the 4th time I've thrown since the Under Armour game, so it's been over 5 months since I picked up baseball. And I think this Friday I'm actually allowed to start hitting again. So I haven't been doing much workouts. I think I've done like 7 or 8 workouts for pro teams, but I've just been hitting at them. And that was earlier, around like September, whenever I was allowed to swing. So Dr. Andrews actually shut me down, so I'm not allowed to do anything until Friday.
Wow, that must be tough for you, but it is good to hear that you're starting rehab. What has it been like for you to have to face a challenge so close to your senior year? Has it been somewhat of a setback in your mind, or have you been able to deal with that, pretty well?
I think it's been good for me, honestly. I mean, that kind of sounds not very smart to say, but I think it's been good for me because I never really had a chance to settle down and actually feel what it was like to be a teenager. And honestly, I mean, you mentioned my forearms earlier. I work out a lot, and I think people can notice that just by looking at me. And it got to the point where I was working out too much, so I was getting a little too tight for my swing, and I was getting very vulnerable to injuries. So since I've been injured, I haven't been able to work out since May as hard as I normally would. So it's kind of actually helped me get looser and more flexible. So I think this year's season I'm going to be a little better of a hitter staying through the balls and being able to do things that I couldn't do whenever I was as tight. So overall, I think it's